Hello and welcome to another Intea Breakfast. This is Wednesday, but you're watching this on Friday because this is one of those rare breakfasts where we're not doing this live, but we will record this in one go on Wednesday so that you can enjoy this with your last workday's coffee in the morning, hopefully.
Let's start.
Yes, we are going to talk about boring learning and how to make it less boring. We called it Unboring the Boring. And the sponsor of today's podcast is The Boring Company by Elon Musk. This is my favorite company name in the world, probably. The Boring Company. What they do, they actually do the boring, as in making tunnels in the earth. Let me share my screen and we'll begin with the presentation. How often do you see boring learning in percentage?
I would say that 70-80% of what I see, people make is actually boring. I might be strict here, but definitely at least 70-80% of clients, companies that approach me, somewhere in the very beginning say, we have this content or we want to do this training and we've done it before, but it was boring.
It was actually my personal revelation recently that I found myself actually enjoying content that I would previously consider boring. And as a learning professional, I immediately, I'm always in this mode of self-observation. So I stopped and started thinking, like, what's happening? Like, why am I fine with listening to a 2.5-hour podcast where there's just one person talking into a microphone on black background, and not unlike this one, and why was I always skipping on this before? And then I understood that it's actually about the topic, right?
Yeah.
It's about my decision. The podcast was actually about healthier lifestyle, and before I was like, why would I spend 2.5 hours on doing that? I have a friend who always sends me podcasts which are over 7 hours long, sometimes 7 hours of podcast. And some people would say, hey, why don't you listen at twice the speed? And that always kind of eked me.
Yeah.
And then I suddenly realized that yes, I made a conscious decision to better my life or certain aspects of my life, and I started listening to people who know something about that, and suddenly this 2 hours became very useful to me and very relevant and not boring at all. And I did try to do that before. So if you take one thing from this, and this is a big spoiler for the rest half hour, it's that there is no boring, there is relevant or not relevant, and we will gonna deep dive into this idea right now.
Yep.
First of all, again, we have a channel on YouTube. Do subscribe, do like, feel free to share it with your colleagues. So yes, it is not boring. Whenever you're a learner, and again, we can't say that we are not the ones to judge what's boring or not. I actually expected you to say that because we at Intea, our idea of boring or not boring, it could be something like, hey, it's boring for us because we've done this course a million times before, but it's not boring for the learners because it's the first time they are seeing this. Kind of like being a magician, you know, it's your 1000th trick, and you're not very excited about that, but you know, it's the first time for a little kid that you're showing it to. So it's up to the learners to decide what's boring and not, and if they say that it is boring, if they voice it in their feedback, if you feel like you can't really push something onto them unless it's absolutely mandatory and you need like a lot of reminders, if you see that people are trying to skip content and so on, then you know, in general it gives off the boring vibe. Typically it's not like it can be boring as well. Like it can be
boring, but it's not usually the root cause, the reason of the problem, because what they mask by boring is something else.
Yes, and primarily it's something not being relevant to the learner. So if I ask you to watch a short, really nice done video on, I don't know, post stamps collection, you know, when a guy for 15 minutes compares two stamps which look pretty much identical, you would be bored in the first minute, right?
Yeah.
There are some people who will die to get to watch this video. There are some people who will excitingly write comments and discuss what is happening in that video because they're excited, it's relevant to them. They are the collectors. We are not, it's boring to us. Likewise, when you bring a sustainability course on how our company is going the green way and so on, to a sales guy who is now filling out his lead sheet for the day and he's going to make 100 calls, and somewhere in between he needs to listen for 15 minutes or maybe an hour of how we're going the green way, he wouldn't care. And if you push him, if you tie him to the chair and make him watch, he will be rolling his eyes, he will be saying, this is boring content, I don't want to be here. So
yeah, but what he means is it's not relevant to him. He doesn't see the value. It's not like the course is wall of text or something. It might be a very good quality thing.
The course can be acted out by Hollywood actors. It can be voiced by Morgan Freeman. It can include a ton of interactions and presentations. Can be done by the best agency in the world.
But still,
that guy will not care.
Yeah,
he needs to get to his calls. So again, the core idea is that nothing is boring or not, it's relevant or not. That's what we should look at. And number one kind of way to fix that is don't push irrelevant content to people. Like, we need to be very conscious about relevance of learning, especially in the amount of learning that we push out to people today. It has to be we have to be really considerate about what we do, and we don't, like sustainability course, like should we push those 20 minutes onto everyone, or should we just put up a poster in the bathroom and say that we're saving water or something?
Exactly. Exactly.
We have to be very considerate, but let's say we genuinely understand that the content is relevant, but people still call it boring and irrelevant. Why would that be? And there are a number of reasons. Let's look at them. First of all, they just don't understand. Like, you have not done your job properly. You have not explained why this is relevant, why sustainability is relevant to a sales guy. If we genuinely believe so, we should be able to articulate that, and we should be but we absolutely must put this on the front page, before the front page, into the course description, into the course title.
Into the subject of the email that tells that you've been added to this course.
Yes, and we can also be pretty specific. We know that, let's say in our company there is, let's say 50% of salespeople and 50% of back office personnel, like in many retail companies or telcos, for example. And we can actually address the email to those different groups, saying how sustainability of our company helps you sell more.
Yeah.
Same course, but I'm immediately interested in, like, okay, well, between my lead search and my actual sales calls, I might find a few minutes to actually take a look at the course. And then in the course, hopefully on the front page, on the first page, and throughout the course, you emphasize how it helps us, and you address those different audiences. Because for the back office employees, we can say something like how being more sustainable helps you go home early. Or
cut costs, improve work-life balance, I don't know, get to work faster, whatever they need.
It might be not obvious to them immediately.
Absolutely.
And they might have very bad experiences previously with some of the compliance courses, with some of those regular, often terrible courses on safety, security, policies, and code of conduct, and so on. But if you genuinely feel that it's relevant to them, tell them why. Because no one will make a mental effort to understand why it's relevant to them.
They might not even be able to do that, because
they might not have the information.
Think of GDPR courses. Who knew exactly what is this about and how it's relevant to everyone's job? You had to explain it.
we start with the fact that no one knows what GDPR stands for before they take the course. So if you tell them, hey, it's a course on GDPR, you have to take it, that's one thing. If you say, this is a course of how we protect our clients' privacy and stay out of trouble and don't want to be in the newspapers in a bad way, that's a different thing.
Yeah, okay.
So another one is when people say it's not relevant to me, and you say, yes, it's relevant to you, you might be talking about different time frames.
Yeah.
A typical employee thinks in weeks and months and does not think beyond the year. No one thinks in the same time frame as corporations, as the organizations think. It's natural. We're small humans, they are big corporations. So when you say it's relevant to you, in your next 20 years at this company, you will definitely run into a situation that requires this
knowledge or skill.
This whatever procedure, or you have to be prepared. Or yes, we know there is a very little chance of this incident happening. It's a fire, it's an earthquake, it's a terrorist situation. But it might happen, so you need to be aware. A lot of people will say, why would I do that? It's so unlikely. For an organization, it's likely. If you have 100 offices and you've been in this business for 30 years, you probably have one fire every couple of years. For a human who works in a single office, the probability of actually seeing a fire in the next 5 to 10 years is 0. So you're talking about different time scales. So you have to go down from the organizational level to the human level in terms of time scale. If you can, you have to explain how it's relevant to you in the next 6 months, or ideally right after the course. So after you finish the course, you can go and do this. Even with safety, like after you finish this course and you go to lunch, just try and count how many fire extinguishers you see. And something like that. And you can't talk about things which are your lifespan away. Right. We actually had this one of my favorite examples where we were asked to build a training course, which we declined, and we did a different project to the same effect. But the ask was that we need to build a course which teaches people to identify essentially data fraud, which would happen maybe in 1 in 5,000 customers. For millions of customers that go through the company, that's a lot of money and so on. But for a human who does these things and he serves they serve
hundreds of customers
a year, essentially, that's like once in a lifetime occurrence, this type of fraud. And we said no one will watch this, and even if they do watch this and they encounter this fraudulent situation a year from now or 5 years from now, they will not remember anything. So it has to be done differently. So again, time scale. They say it's boring, we say it's irrelevant. You say that no, it's relevant, and then they say again.
Okay, and then we're gonna cheat. Okay, if you say it's relevant, we think it's irrelevant, so we will cheat and get a tick in the system, but we will not learn anything. So it's not gonna happen.
Another thing that we often see is the mistake of thinking that something is relevant by association. What we mean is that if you work in a telecom company, in whatever job, some people will think that you need to be aware of how mobile communication works or what 5G is. And if you work in an oil industry, then you need to know how oil is mined and stuff like that, because how can you not? My answer to that is, well, I definitely can not.
If I've chosen to be an accountant and I'm in the oil industry, doesn't mean I need to understand all of the business, right? So, or if I'm in HR, I might not understand in detail what the engineers do, right? To be able to be a good HR person, because some people might be very willing and interesting to understand the business, although they are kind of in the back office and the supporting functions, but some might not. And imposing learning like that on them will make them very frustrated and unhappy. I would say those kind of relevant by association courses just need to be they don't need to be mandatory.
At least. But then again, if we make them non-mandatory, then we will ask ourselves, well, why only like 10% of people who could potentially go through the course only do that? Why did we make this investment? And that's again, that's a waste of resources. Whereas this could be fixed potentially by explaining the relevance. Again, it might be again a case of not obvious relevance. For example, you need to know what 5G is, because when someone meets you, and they ask like where you work, and you say, well, I work in a telecom company. And so, well, you're the guy who puts all those 5G terrible antennas everywhere, and you're gonna drive us to our graves. You have to be able to at least explain what 5G is, or at least internally you should know that he's wrong and that guy is like talking.
Yeah, he's probably seen some silly, nonsense videos somewhere.
And you need to know that internally, because otherwise your employees will start thinking like that. Like,
remember that project we had, I think, in the midst of the previous kind of financial crisis. We were doing projects like that called the ambassadorship projects, where anyone in the bank had to be able to understand the business.
For the banks, it was
2011, 12. It was still this post-Lehman Brothers meltdown situation where banks were bad.
The banks were taking people's apartments away. There were foreclosures, and a lot of people who worked at the banks, they felt bad about banking, and they were good at their jobs. But you are at your Christmas table and someone asks you like, hey, like someone is new to the family, and they're like, hey, what do you do? Well, I work in the bank. And everyone's like, yeah,
you are those guys who lend us money to be able to take our apartments away. That was kind of the story. And you would need to be able to explain that actually banking business is not about taking apartments away. It's about getting the money back, the money they lend to somebody. But anyways, it's a tricky place.
Yes.
It's a tricky place. You have to be cautious.
There's a number of things where we find something not relevant, and therefore we call it boring, or the learners do that. Yeah. And hopefully that gives you a bit of insight into this. So another kind of number of things and a deeper dive into learner psyche sort of is trying to understand why they might think it's not relevant. Essentially, we will try to decompose this not obvious part a little bit more. So real quick, this is one of my favorite. I actually have a mug in German saying the same thing. Not my circus, not my monkeys, and I think that has a lot of to do with how learners respond to things that they feel that they're not relevant. So a lot of times you will hear it's not my job. For example, we see that in attitudes towards security courses, especially IT security, where why do I need to know all of that? We have like a whole IT department, IT security department. These are the people who block every app that I have on my phone while on premises. These are the people who don't let me print out stuff that I want to print out. They blocked all the USB ports. They are generally annoying. So let them do their job of protecting us. And it's definitely not my job, especially when the hackers out there are so smart. We've all seen the movies. They can hack the Pentagon, so definitely they will be able to hack me if it's left up to me. So
who am I to prevent them from doing it?
Yeah, right? Exactly. So it's not my job. Why would I even care? So they will think, well, it's not relevant. So your job, and we will not explain how exactly, although we have done that in a number of courses. Your job is essentially to explain why these threats are relevant, what is your exact role in the picture, and what you specifically can do to generally prevent that, and what risks are there for you personally. Because again, if it's not your job, you can't be blamed for that, right? So if your bank is hacked, is it your problem? There were people trying to protect your email, and if they didn't want you to click on that link, they should have blocked it or something.
Exactly.
So that's a lot of attitude from people like that in for example, security courses.
Yeah.
Another thing is it gets in the way. A lot of things, again, in compliance and prevention and anti-money laundering, any new processes in general, any kind of change is perceived as getting in the way of you doing your jobs. So, for example, let's say we're training people in an airport on how to not lose luggage. So our business goal is to decrease the lost luggage from, 1,000 suitcases a month to 100 suitcases a month, so like tenfold. And for that, we introduce like a double checking of tags. So you have to check your buddy's scanner, and he has to check yours. I'm improvising, but something like that. Well, obviously, those people, where you start explaining this to them in a course, they will say, "Oh wow, like really? This is boring. Like, why would I need that? I don't even want to watch this, and so it's not relevant to me." And
and I mean, we will. Okay, I've taken this training, but we will still keep on doing things the way we do because that works, and what you're explaining doesn't work.
Yeah, and when you ask them, like, what was the best course that you've seen in the last year, that course will
not appear on the charts. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. So a lot of new things get in the way. So again, you have to explain the benefits, you have to sell that, you have to explain the relevance. Likewise, I don't have time for it. Any new process, any change, any safety measure, any compliance procedure typically tries to steal your time.
Or at least your initial reaction as a learner will be like that. You will assume that most probably this will it will steal time from me. So a lot of resistance there.
Likewise, you might hear this about the course itself, right? There's a course, and you need to learn this. It's potentially relevant, but you don't really have time.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is that it's actually not a priority, right? So my priorities are the things that I'm getting paid for, my KPIs. Maybe meeting my monthly quota, maybe serving a number of clients, selling a number of things, just not being late on submitting reports, whatever my job is, maybe carrying a number of suitcases in an airport. So this course, while it's somewhat relevant, it's just not a priority. So again, you have to sell why this is a priority. And then, of course, there's this learned helplessness of, it won't help anyway. Again, we can come back to the IT security and, why would you want me to learn about this, about how not to let others sneak into, physically into the building, and why everyone has to scan a badge and so on and so on. Anyone who really wants to do it, they will do that. We've all seen Mission Impossible. They will descend on a wire and steal our secret and so on. So this is a number of things that you will hear. You will actually not hear from learners, but they will think that. So you have to run your course and your sales proposition for that course through those things to make sure that you address them and you actually sell the course to your learners. Otherwise, you will keep hearing that it's boring and it's not for me and it's not my job and all of those things. Right. So let's switch gears into the second half of this and talk about kind of the form and format. The idea is that even if our content is relevant and good and so on, it can still be objectively boring because of the presentation. And it's a case of us kind of just making our own lives harder where we definitely don't need to, right? So
here, I mean, what at least how I understand this picture is what very often happens is that you have a bunch of SMEs who do understand that this super relevant content is boring, it's hard to digest, and then they would come to the learning department or to us directly or together and say, okay, what can we do with this? Basically, let's try and put this content on steroids. let's inject a funny video. Let's inject,
Let's create characters and rebuild this into.
Perhaps if the same thing
book.
is, let's rebuild this into comic book. And if we have a funny character, then this hard to digest content will not look that bad. So, this what we call putting lipstick on a pig, right?
Yeah, it can be as terrible as can we do this in a different font so it doesn't look that boring or
or let's have fireworks.
Or let's make letters bigger. In fact, actually, when I put this picture in the presentation, I wanted to convey a message that actually you don't have to be this. You don't have to be the entertainer.
You don't have to be there.
It's okay for stuff to be boring. You don't have to make a song out of every page of your course. You don't need to invite actors, draw characters, introduce animations, and so on. All that, it's a little bit coarse, but lipstick on a pig doesn't work. Instead, your form of how you offer your course can be just too high energy for the learners to consume, and all you need to do is to make it a little bit low energy. So here are a couple of examples. First of all, my favorite, I think it was from one of the stand-up comedians. They said that, hey, would you like to watch a 5-hour movie? Like everyone would say no. Like 5-hour movie, who got time for that? Hey, what if I split this into 12, 25-minute episodes? Will you binge watch it in one evening? Yes, absolutely. Yes. I will. Absolutely. I myself have watched 6, 7, 8 hours of movies on a weekend, of TV series on a weekend, whereas watching a movie that's 2 hours, I never got time for that. So if you just split the same thing into bite-sized learning, it's easier to digest for a lot of learners. Just think about that. Maybe instead of picking a funnier font or inventing a funny character to narrate your 1-hour course, you just split into smaller things, and people just eat that. There is also my favorite example from behavioral economy, where economists were faced with the problem, or rather behaviorists probably were faced with the problem of people not taking the full course of antibiotics. And that's a very bad thing, because if you need to eat
like 10 pills
over 10 days, and you only eat 8, and then you stop because you already feel better and you don't eat the other 2, the problem is that despite you feeling better, you didn't kill the last bacteria. 1% of the bacteria, and those are the strongest. They are resistant, most resistant, and when they multiply back, you will get 100% of very, very strong bacteria which will not respond to the antibiotics. And when it happens in the planetary scale, this is how we end up with stronger and stronger resistant bacteria, and we need stronger and stronger antibiotics, and it's a vicious cycle. So the moral of the story, first of all, eat your antibiotics to the end. But then the way it was solved is that they colored 2 pills blue, and they left the rest white, and they said you need to eat the 8 pills, and then in the end you need to eat 2 blue pills. So people did that because
the signal was that the last ones are the real ones. Those are probably the strongest, or whatever they kind of thought about it, right?
Yeah, and it's just repackaging. It's pure form, but it works. There's a ton of other examples, but splitting something into smaller chunks is always easier, because even if you put just write on your course that it's like 10 minutes and then there's another part of 10 minutes, it's way better than writing that it's 20. Another thing is that you can help people to digest stuff by moving your course, your learning content, into their secondary perception channel. What we mean by that is, think about how often would you be doing something like mechanical on your computer, like filling out a form or sorting some invoices or downloading files and putting them in order while listening to something in parallel. If you listen to YouTube, if you listen to your Spotify podcast or music, you can just like that listen to a course. However, do we often get a course that you can listen to?
As a podcast?
Podcast, not really.
No.
Typically, it requires you to interrupt every 1 minute, click the next page, or interact with something. This is a case of lower interactivity actually making for better learning. We have a customer who switched their code of conduct, was it?
Yeah, code of conduct, they switched from an e-learning course to a podcast.
Yeah.
So every year you have to re-listen to it and then probably fill out something or answer a couple of questions. And that works because you still pick up stuff. The alternative is that people will just click through, cheat, and the learning uptake will be even.
But if you
lower.
know that it's a 40-minute podcast on the main things about the code of conduct, it's nicely produced, and you can listen to it in your car. Maybe over 2 days when you commute to work, or when you go to work and back, and you'll listen while driving, because why not? You still have to do that. But if that was a course with slides, it would be much harder to find that time for that.
Effort.
Yes. Conversely, sometimes if a course requires you to listen to it, you might be reluctant to find time where you actually need to watch and listen. It takes 100% of your perception. You need to dedicate your whole time to that. Whereas if that was like a reading course, you can put on some nice music and do that, or maybe you could do it on a treadmill and go through that in a gym where listening to something is not.
Or clicking. It's might not be even. If what can I do? If I'm on a bike, right?
It's not just, we're not saying just move everything to podcasts.
No.
You can just remove the audio part from a course and make it occupy less of your perception channels and make it more digestible for people. Okay, another one is multi-format. It's linked to the previous one because you can produce a course which can be consumed in different ways in parallel. There's something that can be read or something that can be listened to. If you notice, then almost every news outlet now offers to listen to the article that you're reading. And sometimes it's useful because you're going through the news page while driving, and then you find something that you're interested in, but actually reading and driving is objectively dangerous, and you don't want to do that. So instead of just glancing at the article and trying to comprehend it in little bites, you just click one button and a nice voice just reads it to you. It costs almost nothing. Technology is there. So if newspapers can do that, why can't we do that with our courses or with even documents and stuff like that? Again, so offer people two formats. They will pick the one that suits them, and in that you will get more uptake, and you will hear less of, hey, I don't have time for this. This is boring. I don't want to read all of that. It's actually interesting. I was trying to do a blog a couple of years ago. First of all, I was writing my posts in Facebook, and then I started recording myself on video because I thought that would be like an alternative format. Maybe people will enjoy that more. And I immediately received two kinds of feedback. Some people said that, hey, can you just put the script as a post so that I can read that. I don't have time to watch all of that. And some said, well, thank you, finally, I can actually dive into your content. I'm not much of a reader. And then some people said, why are you posting this on Facebook and you put it on YouTube? And I was like, why? It's the same thing. And they said, no, on YouTube you can actually watch it at double speed. And I was like, am I that boring? And they're like, no, you're not boring, but this is how I listen to almost everything. So I save a lot of time by that. And so I personally don't do that, but people do that. So do give people parallel alternative formats to consume the course. Again, building on that, you can still use different formats, but not in parallel. Same thing, but as a video, as a text, as a podcast, as a series of tweets or something. but you can mix and match stuff. So look at things. If it's easier to show it on video rather than writing about this, do that. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, do the picture, not the 1,000 words, and so on. Make that effort and onboard your content by picking the correct media for the correct parts. Likewise, if you decided that video is the thing and you're doing a video course, there are some things which don't require a video.
Yeah,
there are
absolutely.
some things which you can just take out of the video and say, okay, here's a document with the table, download it, print it out, use it in your work, instead of like showing this table on screen for 5 seconds and hoping that someone will what?
Make a screenshot?
Yeah. Right.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite. Yeah.
Okay, you tell about this then.
Yeah, one of the sins, so to say, of many SMEs is that the depth of the knowledge they want to transmit to the learners is not adequate, right? Or I mean, it's like a blank thing where everybody needs to know this, and it's that thick. So trying to make everybody an expert. And as soon as the learners enters that course, they instantly feel that, and they lose this relevancy kind of feeling, because they say, oh wow, this is too deep for me. I'm just a sales guy in this company. I appreciate sustainability and stuff, but explaining me the meteorological patterns over the next 50 years on Earth is a bit too much. Yeah.
Or I'm just selling these things. I don't need to know how they work, or who invented them, or what's the underlying physical principle of that is. Although it would be nice to
sometimes
to at least understand that it's not magic. And kind of the basic principle would probably be useful. But then sometimes you can deduce the fact that it's too deep from the title of the course.
Yeah, it already sounds like, oh wow.
Yeah,
oh, wow.
like the physical principles of oil mining, and you're like, oh, physical. The last time we dealt with physics, was in high school.
Exactly. But still, not always you can fight that back with SMEs. Sometimes, again, with compliance courses, this depth might be just given. So our suggestion is that instead of producing this super long, very deep course, make it staged, produce this basic version, produce an intermediate and then the advanced ones, because the likelihood of me, a person who doesn't understand the physical principles of oil drilling, is if I get first a very simplified thing with clear takeaways and understanding, very schematic, the likelihood of me wanting to go deeper will increase because I understand the basic principles. Okay, now I'm interested. Okay, now I'm interested how it's kind of to get more and then more, and maybe I'll get to that advanced level.
Or maybe not, but at least I will get something instead of skipping out on the whole course.
Yeah, because most probably it will be an 2080 thing.
And it also plays well with the bite-sized approach, because
you can make it this way. Yeah,
you would probably structure your course like that anyway. Probably if you're writing a course on something, then you start from the basic principles and then you go deeper within that course. But instead, do 2 or 3 different courses, make them smaller, and it will be less of a threshold for people to get to actually and see that course.
Absolutely.
And again, since we started talking about structuring, essentially. Just draw inspiration from how people structure things on the internet, where the battle for attention is the most vicious. So what we always see is that people try to advertise like 5 things you need to learn about traveling to India, 10 best cities in Germany, 13 facts you didn't know about Albert Einstein, and so on. Why not call your course and structure your course in a way that sort of makes this promise of, hey, these are the 4 basic tips of how sustainability can help you sell more, or these are the 3 worst things that can happen to you if you ignore IT security. Or I can go on and on. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's the idea of how you first of all structure stuff, because if you make that promise of these are the five things, and then you open it and it's a book of just pure text, that's a broken promise. But if that allows people to grab attention in the most competitive market of all, it should help you to grab people's attention within way less competitive market of workplace learning.
Absolutely.
Finally, language and tone. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
I mean,
when people say it's boring, and it's relevant to them, but they still say that, it can be just about language. There is such thing as boring language. There is such thing as boring tone. Just try not to shoot yourself in the foot or like put that stick into your bicycle, like on the previous slide, with an expert who does not convey their material in the tone and voice that would excite people. Again, you don't need to be the entertainer. You don't need to make every slide into a poem or a song. But sometimes it takes just a little effort and investment into making something more approachable and snapping out of that official line of communication.
I mean, legalese, technical language, IT language, super long paragraph and sentences where you have to remember 25 facts before you get to the end of the sentence, and so maybe. So it's not, kind of, as you're saying, not a big effort. It's just being more humane. And I mean, ChatGPT is your helper here.
And I also think that it often happens, this terrible language can find its way into a course.
Creeps into.
Because of those third parties like the legal department or the IT or someone else who insists on being like overly technical or overly precise.
So we say it like that, so we say it like that,
So you have to hold your ground as an instructional designer, as a course author or an expert on the course, and say, yes, I know it should be called like a transportation device, but let's call it a car for now, put an asterisk once, and just
somewhere
call it a car, because 99.9% of the time it will be a car, and 0.1% of the time it will be a horse cart or something.
Exactly
Stuff
like that.
Right, so that's pretty much it. If you take one thing away from this conversation, which I hope was useful, it's that there is no such thing as boring. It's mostly irrelevant, so you have to make your training more relevant and also more digestible. Help people lower this energy threshold of jumping into your content by employing all the tricks that we've just listed, and hopefully you will hear less of hey, my learning is boring, or I need to do that, or maybe you will just see a little bit less of eye rolls and I forgot about this. Maybe you will hear a little bit more of a positive reaction from your learners in the future. With that, thank you for your attention. We're sorry that this is not live. If you have questions, do leave them in the comments. Suggest the next topic for our next breakfast. And follow us on every social media where you can find us. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.